The historical reliance on crude oil in Nigeria has perpetuated a painful cycle of economic instability, leaving its citizens in a constant struggle. This dependency has not only stifled growth but also severely impacted vital sectors, from education to infrastructure, illustrating how deeply intertwined oil is with the nation's fate. This leads us to the environmental degradation witnessed in the Niger Delta, a region bearing the brunt of oil extraction's severe consequences. Here, local communities are grappling with pollution and the erosion of their livelihoods, compelling an urgent call for economic diversification and a reassessment of priorities. However, recent lithium discoveries in Kaduna State present a beacon of hope for Nigeria's economic trajectory. This potential new industry stands to attract global attention and investments, signifying a possible turning point for a country long shackled by its oil dependency. Moreover, the identification of a massive lithium belt across 7 Nigerian states could potentially double the country's lithium reserves, amplifying its economic significance. This estimation marks a substantial pivot in resource management and strategic planning. With global demand for lithium on an upward trajectory, Nigeria's high-quality ore represents a promising solution to future energy needs. Yet, this development brings forth both remarkable opportunities and formidable challenges that international stakeholders must navigate. In light of these developments, Nigeria's 3-pillar strategy stands out, focusing on local processing, equitable partnerships, and job creation. This approach aims to ensure that the benefits of the lithium boom remain within the country, fostering sustainable development and empowering local communities. Furthermore, the Nigerian government has committed to training 30,000 certified battery technicians by 2030, a move designed to fortify the burgeoning lithium industry and cultivate local expertise. This workforce development is pivotal for the long-term success of this venture. The financial prospects of lithium processing are indeed impressive, with potential revenues soaring to $31 billion and an anticipated net revenue of $10 billion for Nigeria over the next 15 years. Such figures imply a transformative impact across various sectors, holding the promise of economic revitalization. As we delve deeper, environmental regulations emerge as a priority, reflected in new laws that mandate sustainable practices in mining. These initiatives aim to learn from past mistakes, with the government ensuring strict oversight to protect local communities and their ecosystems. Additionally, the mandatory clause in mining leases ensures that 3% of gross revenue is directed to community development funds. This provision empowers local stakeholders, enabling them to make crucial decisions on project funding that directly impacts their lives. Nevertheless, challenges persist, particularly in financing, skills development, and political stability, all critical for the success of Nigeria's lithium mining initiatives. Overcoming these hurdles will ultimately shape the future of the industry. If Nigeria effectively navigates these challenges, it could emerge as a prominent hub for electric vehicle production and battery manufacturing. Such a transformation would significantly alter the narrative surrounding the nation's economy, paving the way for a prosperous future.
And this one, the revenue for the government is going to be around $500 million per annum.
Imagine a quiet, sun-drenched ridge in northern Nigeria. A few goats graze lazily on sparse vegetation, the air still and silent. Then, a sound slices through the calm, the mechanical churn of a drill. Suddenly, it hits a streak of rock that, once tested, reveals a staggering 9% lithium oxide. For context, that is more than double the grade of the ore that crowned Chal as the undisputed battery king of South America. In that moment, the quiet ridge in Kaduna State became the new center of a silent, frantic global scramble. All at once, procurement specialists at Tesla, battery magnates in Beijing, and strategists in Washington began refreshing their satellite maps, zooming in on a nation they had long pigeonholed for a different resource entirely. For half a century, crude oil built the Lagos skyline, its fluctuating price dictating the fate of an entire nation. But the next chapter of Nigeria's story, one of silent electric buses gliding past gleaming glass towers, might be powered by the very metal printed on the side of your phone battery. This is more than a mining story. It's a story about a second chance. It's about whether the world's balance of power, your next car, and your next phone might soon bear a proud Made in Nigeria sticker, and whether this time the immense wealth buried in the ground will finally lift up the people who live on top of it. For 50 years, the Nigerian state has been shackled to a single commodity, its fortunes rising and falling with the volatile price of Brent crude. The national budget, the livelihoods of its citizens, and its very stability were held hostage by a number a few could control and none could predict. When the price soared to $150 a barrel, the government coffers swelled. Teachers received their salaries, new roads were paved, and politicians beamed for television cameras, cutting ribbons on ambitious new projects. But when the price inevitably crashed to $30, the dream collapsed into a nightmare. Doctors and engineers, seeing no future, would board the next flight out of Lagos or Abuja, contributing to a catastrophic brain drain. The national currency, the naira, would begin a sickening slide, its value evaporating like a puddle in the dry season. This brutal cycle became a grim national reality, a source of dark humor among its people. Oil is our national lottery ticket. One popular joke goes, and we keep buying the same losing numbers. It's a tragic jest because it's painfully true. 90% of export income, 60% of government revenue, and a staggering 95% of foreign exchange reserves have all been tethered to that one chaotic roller coaster chart. This dependency became the textbook definition of the resource curse, a paradox where nations blessed with immense natural wealth find themselves plagued by corruption, conflict, and poverty. The story was never just about economics. It was a story of exploitation, a cycle repeated across the African continent for generations. The warnings were impossible to miss, written in the poisoned earth and polluted waters of the Niger Delta. For decades, the region has been a testament to the high cost of oil wealth. Rivers that once teemed with fish now run black with crude from constant spills, with some estimates suggesting around 40 million liters of oil contaminate the region annually. The sky glows with the perpetual fire of gas flares, releasing toxic pollutants into the air that residents breathe every day. In a cruel twist of irony, the country that exported nearly 2 million barrels of oil a day often found itself importing refined petrol just to keep its own cars and generators running. The wealth was extracted, but the benefits remained elusive for the majority. Local communities that relied on farming and fishing for their livelihoods saw their lands rendered barren and their waters poisoned, pushing them deeper into poverty. Despite the immense profits generated, basic infrastructure in these oil-producing areas crumbled. For decades, every government policy paper, every economic forum, and every international consultant has screamed the same desperate advice: diversify. Yet nothing ever stuck. The system was too entrenched, the profits too intoxicating for the elite. So when whispers of a monumental discovery began to leak out of Kaduna State in early 2023, it felt like more than just a news headline. For a nation weary of the oil curse, it felt like the very ground was shifting beneath its feet, offering a rare and precious opportunity to rewrite its own story. The first hint of this new chapter came not from a multinational corporation with advanced satellite imaging, but from the most unlikely of sources: artisanal miners in Kwoi. Kwoi is a town so sleepy that even Google Street View's cameras seem to have given up halfway through mapping its dusty roads. These miners weren't looking for lithium. Armed with basic handheld detectors, they were hunting for tin and columbite, common minerals in the region. But then, their detectors started screaming, the beeps climbing off the charts in a way they had never heard before. Intrigued, they sent samples of the strange, pale rock for analysis. When the results came back from sophisticated labs in Vancouver, they were stunning. The rock was spodumene, a lithium-bearing mineral, but in a form so pure it looked like cut glass. These weren't just any crystals. They could have easily passed for luxury items at a Swarovski store. The assays confirmed the visual evidence, clocking in with lithium oxide concentrations between 4% and a jaw-dropping 13%. To put that into perspective, most commercial lithium mines around the world operate on grades of 1 to 2%. A veteran geologist, with decades of experience in the world's top mining regions, reportedly remarked, "I've seen Chile. I've seen Australia. I have never seen ore this clean." What began in Kwoi soon revealed itself to be part of a much larger geological prize. By December of that year, the Nigerian Ministry of Mines had connected the dots, revealing a massive lithium belt stretching across 7 states: Nasarawa, Kebbi, Kwara, Osun, Kogi, Ekiti, and Kaduna. A conservative initial tally estimated the find at 450,000 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. At current market prices, that translates to over $20 billion worth of high-demand metal just sitting in the ground. And this was likely just the beginning. Further surveys suggested a second, parallel belt running from Ejero Ekiti to Oak Isla, which could potentially double the total reserves. In the blink of an eye, Nigeria had transformed from an oil-dependent state into a potential powerhouse in the new energy economy. The discovery meant that Nigeria had just become more interesting and more strategically important than anyone had imagined. To understand why this discovery sends shockwaves through global boardrooms and government ministries, you only need to look at your own devices. Every time you swipe open an app on your phone, lithium ions are shuttling back and forth inside its battery, making that action possible. Now scale that concept up to the battery required for an electric vehicle, and you are suddenly shopping for 8 to 12 kilograms of the pure, refined metal. The demand is exploding. According to Bloomberg and EF, the world's appetite for lithium is projected to leap from approximately 680,000 tons today to 3.2 million tons by the year 2030. The International Energy Agency is even more ambitious, forecasting a need for 4.8 million tons if the world is to meet its net zero emissions targets. In plain English, the green revolution we hear so much about runs on lithium. Without a dramatic and rapid increase in mining, the entire transition to clean energy stalls. When you look at the current global supply map, the situation appears terrifyingly fragile for Western nations. Australia is the world's largest miner of hard rock lithium, digging the raw ore out of the ground. Chile and Argentina produce lithium by evaporating it from massive brine ponds in their deserts. And China, through strategic foresight and massive investment, has achieved a near monopoly on the most critical stage: refining. It processes the vast majority of the world's raw lithium into the battery-grade chemicals needed for manufacturing. Meanwhile, the United States and Europe are scrambling, trying to rebuild domestic supply chains and remember where they left their geological shovels. Into this tense, high-stakes environment enters Nigeria, a brand new African source, politically unaligned, boasting sky-high ore grades that promise a lower-cost path to battery-grade chemicals. This is the kind of geological and geopolitical development that has presidents, prime ministers, and CEOs booking red-eye flights to Abuja. It's not just about a new mine. It's about a chance to rebalance a dangerously tilted global supply chain. This is where the story gets truly interesting, because Nigeria is determined not to repeat the mistakes of its past or the mistakes of its neighbors. For decades, the model of Western and, more recently, Chinese engagement in Africa has been brutally simple. Extract raw materials for pennies on the dollar, ship them overseas for processing, and sell the finished products back to the world at a massive markup, leaving the host nation with a hole in the ground and little else. Nigeria is flipping that script. It isn't auditioning to be the world's next pit stop for raw rocks. It wants the entire kitchen, from the mine to the final product. The government has laid out a clear and audacious playbook built on 3 core pillars. Pillar 1 is unequivocal. No unprocessed ore leaves the country. This policy was tested almost immediately when a delegation, reportedly from Tesla, arrived and offered a staggering $400 million upfront for a decade's supply of raw lithium concentrate. The response from the mines minister was polite but firm. The message was clear. If you want our lithium, you will build your processing plants here. Build a cathode plant in Calabar, they were told, and we'll talk Turkey. This single act signaled a radical departure from the old ways of doing business, where African nations were treated as mere quarries. Pillar 2 involves actively engaging with foreign partners, including China, but strictly on Nigerian terms. For example, Ganfeng Lithium, a Chinese giant, is already investing $600 million in a processing plant in Nasarawa, which aims to produce 50,000 tons of battery-grade lithium hydroxide annually. KTL, the world's largest battery manufacturer, is reportedly pairing a mining operation in Osun State with a $300 million gigafactory on the outskirts of Lagos. But these deals come with powerful conditions. Local Nigerian partners are guaranteed seats on the board, and Nigerians must be given first preference for every job above the intern level, ensuring a transfer of skills and management experience, not just manual labor. Pillar 3 is perhaps the most ambitious, turning the entire lithium value chain into a national jobs and skills program. The government has mandated a direct link between extraction and employment. For every 1 ton of ore mined, the operating company must create 1 direct local job, hire 1 local subcontractor, and fund 1 training slot at the newly established National Battery Academy. The goal is to produce a workforce of 30,000 certified battery technicians by the year 2030. This is a long-term vision. Just as Malaysia successfully transitioned its economy from palm oil to silicon wafers, Nigeria is betting that it can transform its mineral wealth into advanced manufacturing prowess. This isn't just about selling a resource. It's about building an industry. Let's grab a napkin and run the numbers, because the financial implications are staggering. A single ton of processed lithium carbonate can sell for around $70,000. If Nigeria successfully processes its initial conservative estimate of 450,000 tons, that pencils out to a gross revenue of $31 billion. After accounting for mining costs, refinery margins, royalties, and taxes, the Nigerian government in Abuja could still walk away with $8 to $10 billion in net revenue over the next 15 years. And that's just from selling the processed chemicals. If you begin to factor in the economic multipliers from battery manufacturing plants, electric vehicle assembly lines, recycling hubs, and all the associated service industries, the impact becomes transformative. The prestigious Lagos Business School projects that the burgeoning lithium sector could add as much as 2.4% to Nigeria's GDP by 2035. To put that in perspective, that's a bigger contribution than the cocoa and steel industries combined. Of course, oil still brings in more revenue for now, but oil money has a history of splitting a dozen ways and leaking like a rusty bucket into offshore accounts. Lithium royalties, the government insists, can be different. They can be ring-fenced specifically for projects that citizens can see and touch: new schools, modern clinics, reliable power grids, and perhaps even the salary for the occasional honest accountant to make sure the money goes where it's supposed to. Commodity booms have the power to rewrite diplomatic alliances overnight, and Nigeria's lithium is already shaking up the global chessboard. For years, the West has watched with growing alarm as China methodically secured its dominance over critical mineral supply chains, controlling over 60% of global lithium refining. Nigeria's discovery makes that stranglehold suddenly negotiable. Within weeks of the assays from Kaduna becoming public knowledge, the geopolitical landscape began to shift. A U.S. aid task force was parachuted into Abuja, waving a $500 million credit line from the U.S. Export-Import Bank, a clear signal of American intent to get back in the game. Germany, a manufacturing giant desperate to secure resources for its automotive industry, quickly offered scholarships for Nigerian mining engineers. India signed a memorandum of understanding to partner on battery recycling plants. One foreign diplomat in Abuja joked, "Nigeria's rocks are now diplomatic gold." But Nigeria is leveraging this newfound attention with savvy. Abuja's new rule is simple: everyone is welcome, but no single nation will be granted a monopoly. Furthermore, every major concession granted must come with a tangible benefit for the country: a new rail line, a solar microgrid for a rural area, or a new laboratory for a local university. The global battery wars, it turns out, might just be the fastest way to build modern infrastructure in Nigeria. Of course, there is a giant environmental elephant in the room. The world has seen the horror reels from other resource booms. Vast open-pit mines that look like scars on the face of the planet, rivers running gray with toxic slurry, and children playing on hazardous tailings piles. The history of oil in the Niger Delta is a painful, ever-present reminder of how badly things can go when environmental protection is ignored in the rush for profit. The Nigerian government swears that this time will be different. A new set of stringent environmental regulations, inked last April, seems to back up this claim. Under the new laws, every mining operation must run on a closed-loop water system. meaning zero discharge of industrial wastewater into local rivers or groundwater. No exceptions. For every single tree felled to make way for a mine, the company must plant 3 fast-growing native trees, with the reforestation effort tracked by satellite to ensure compliance. Crucially, a full 10% of the revenue from every ton of lithium sold is automatically diverted into an environmental remediation fund. This fund is to be managed directly by local community leaders, not distant bureaucrats in the capital, a measure designed to prevent the corruption that has plagued similar efforts in the past. Are these new rules working? The early results are mixed, showing both promise and peril. At a new site in Kudu, Chinese engineers have reportedly built a reverse osmosis water treatment plant so effective that you can drink the runoff. Yet, in parts of Ikiti, reports persist of some artisanal miners using primitive and toxic methods, like burning tires to crack open the ore. The Ministry of Mines has issued a stern warning. One violation of the new environmental code, and your license is revoked. Whether that threat has real teeth will ultimately decide if Nigeria becomes the world's poster child for sustainable mining or just another cautionary tale. The most critical question of all remains: will the wealth actually trickle down to the people? This is the heart of the resource curse, the painful lesson learned from Nigeria's own history with oil, which came, saw, and largely forgot to leave a tip for the communities it disrupted. The new lithium playbook is designed to avoid this tragic outcome. Every mining lease now contains a mandatory clause requiring 3% of the gross revenue to be paid directly into a community development fund. The projects funded by this money are not decided by the company or by the government, but by the local people themselves in open-air, town hall-style votes. The first checks have already been cut. In Ijero Ekiti, the fund paid for a brand new STEM laboratory for the local secondary school. In Kudu, it financed a series of greenhouses that are now run on hydroponic waste from the nearby refinery, creating jobs and improving food security. Skeptics dismiss these as well-timed photo ops, designed for good press. But for the locals, they represent the first tangible proof that money from the ground beneath their feet can arrive without the escort of a gunboat. The true test, however, will begin when the television cameras and international journalists leave, and the quarterly transfers must still hit the community bank accounts on time, every time. A recent 7-day trip through the burgeoning lithium belt in Nasarawa revealed a region buzzing with a mixture of hope and trepidation. On Monday, I stood on a ridge where surveyors had just finished planting flags, marking drill holes every 50 meters. Around them, a herd of goats grazed peacefully, oblivious to the fact they were standing on a billion-dollar seam of critical minerals. By Wednesday, I was inside a pristine, air-conditioned lab, watching a group of 30 young Nigerian women calibrating state-of-the-art X-ray fluorescence analyzers, the very same models used by Tesla in its Nevada Gigafactory. Their instructor, a Nigerian PhD who spent a decade working in Shenzhen, joked that her students are so sharp, they'll likely be poached by recruiters from Palo Alto before they even graduate. Despite the palpable optimism, the road ahead is fraught with peril. 3 critical flashpoints over the next 18 months will likely determine whether this incredible story ends in fireworks of national progress or fades into a footnote of missed opportunity. The first is financing. That massive $600 million Ganfeng plant is currently only 30% funded. The remainder hinges on the success of a green bond to be issued in London and a complex syndicated loan from Afreximbank. Any significant delay in securing this capital could cause the project's momentum to stall, spooking other potential investors. The second flashpoint is skills. While the new National Battery Academy has an inaugural class of 1,000 students, Nigerian universities still produce far more graduates in theology than in chemical engineering. Without a robust and rapidly expanding talent pipeline, the ambitious target of 30,000 skilled technician jobs will remain just a dream on a policy document. The third, and perhaps most significant, is politics. A presidential election looms in 2027, and the allocation of mining licenses is already becoming a heated campaign issue. A single politically motivated policy U-turn could send a chill through the international investment community, who still remember the chaos of the 2012 fuel subsidy riots. Yet the upside is almost dizzying to contemplate. If Nigeria can navigate these challenges, if the plan holds, the future looks radically different. Lagos could become a hub for designing and branding its own electric vehicles. The crucial Ibadan rail line could one day run on battery cells manufactured in Nigeria from Nigerian lithium. And 220 million citizens might finally have a story to tell about tomorrow, instead of being haunted by the ghosts of yesterday. Oil once turned desert kingdoms into glittering skylines. Silicon transformed a quiet California valley into the digital center of the universe. Now, the lightest metal on the periodic table might just turn Africa's most populous nation into the engine room of the clean energy age. The drills are spinning, the multi-billion-dollar deals are being inked, and the first shipment of Nigerian-made battery cells is scheduled to leave the port of Lagos in just 18 months. Whether that container ship heralds the dawn of a diversified, resilient economy or simply marks another chapter in the long, sad saga of the resource curse is no longer a matter of fate. It is a matter of policy, of execution, and of the collective will of 220 million Nigerians who have seen this before and are desperately hoping for a different ending this time.